Recorded live.
Hi, it's Susan Newman, a.k.a. Suzy Brandtastic, your host for today's broadcast, the CEO and brand visibility designer at Susan Newman Design Incorporated, specializing in innovative branding and design online and offline for entrepreneurs and creatives, and now celebrating our 20th anniversary. Today's show is sponsored by Frogs Are Green, spreading awareness and engaging people around the world to help save frogs and amphibians. Now open in Jersey City and on exhibition through the 27th of April is Green Dream, an International Children's Earth Day exhibition. To learn more about this extraordinary event, visit frogsaregreen.org. And now I'm pleased to introduce my guest for today, Lisa Crilley Mallis. Did I say that right?
You did. Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. She's a time strategy visionary and combines her experience in secondary education and direct sales and her love of schedules, systems, and all things time management to create SystemSavvy consulting. She believes every person deserves the opportunity to live the life of their dreams, feeling in control and bringing balance into their lives. The crazy, I'm so busy feeling does not have to be a way of life. Lisa is a master at cutting to the heart of overwhelm to help you regain control of your schedule and experience life. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm always excited to meet new people, and especially people who are visionaries. Woo! Love that. So let's start with, sort of a little bit of your background, how you started your company, and, maybe then go into what a time strategy visionary is.
Sure. I come from a secondary education background. So I was a high school math teacher, and then I went into administration and was an athletic director for a Division I high school. And during that time, I was also leading a team of very motivated and high-energy women in the direct sales industry. So doing all of that at once and truly loved every bit of my day. I love being in administration at a high school. I really do get energized by high school students. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it is certainly mine. And when that day ended, I enjoyed working with my team of sellers. Two very different careers, but both, I really enjoyed them both because every single day was different.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the transition. So how long were you in education, and how did you know where you wanted to go, let's say, for that next step?
The first part of your question is easy. The second one is a little tougher. I was in education for 15 years, and how I knew I wanted to make the next step, it wasn't like I woke up one morning and said, it's time for a change. I was working insane hours, and my body, it took a toll on my body, and so I became ill. And that forced me to take the step back and really evaluate what was I doing, why was I doing it, what's my skill set, what do I really want out of my life. And I'm sure you know, sometimes your life can get so busy and so hectic that you're crossing tasks off the list all day long, but you really don't know where you're going.
So are you
but you
saying,
sure?
I'm sorry, are you saying that, and it's something that we should all obviously think about as we're talking about this, are you saying that that because the workload was so, let's say, vast, that we get a little lost in that sometimes, and that's obviously has a direct effect on our bodies?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, part of it was the workload. A big part of it was my inability at the time to set boundaries and say no. I very much was, in before the kids got to school, out after the last event ended. So that's, 7 in the morning until 10, 11 o'clock at night, all week long. And that was me, and I felt that's what I needed to do the job well. Not everyone chooses to approach it like that, but that was my personality at the time. I had to have my hands on everything, and everything had to be done my way. And so I could have definitely seen myself continuing down that path for 30 years until it was time to retire, because that's who I was and that's all I knew.
And would you say that most educators have that same time schedule?
I would say a lot of administrators have that same time schedule. Some teachers choose the same hours. Some choose fewer. It depends on the person. Some are excellent delegators. They can figure out ways to leave early.
Right. Yeah. It does sound like a heavy workload. I know that there are days where I work pretty hard hours, but I definitely set aside certain hours or certain times, during the week to sort of chill out, because, if you just push that 7 days a week, it's just so easy to just totally get burnt out.
Exactly. And that's, now I look back at that and think, what was I doing? Maybe it was okay when I was in my early 20s, but,
yeah.
I was in education longer than 3 years. So, by the time I was in my 15th year, I was no longer in my early 20s.
Right. Well, and, not only that, but the older we get, it's amazing to me how the day seems to get longer all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like I start earlier than I used to. Mm-hmm. But now when it gets to about 4, I'm almost ready for quitting time already.
Right.
So I have to push myself to try to get to 6. I say, okay, now I'll take a break,
Absolutely.
So, all right, so let's talk about what time strategy visionary means.
Okay, so once I realized that I wasn't real thrilled with how I was living my life, and I was forced to take that step back, I then started to figure out, what am I good at? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because left to my own devices, without creating any structure, I will work from the minute I get up in the morning until I go to bed at night. And so I knew that put back into a similar environment, I'm going to make the same choices, even though I know they're bad for me. So I knew I had to do something different. And so I had recently was at a presentation where the keynote made the statement, entrepreneurs recognize opportunities. Though it may not be immediately, they do recognize them. And that's kind of where I was in the idea of a time strategy visionary, because I know that I am great at time management, but I know that it's more than that. And so I'm a big believer in start with the end in mind. What's your vision? Where do you want to be? Then let's create the strategy and the structures on how to get there. And right. Usually that's going to be being more effective and more efficient with your time.
Right. So those first clients that you took on, so did you use the strategy for yourself first, or did you automatically say, well, I've been doing this anyway, and now I'm going to show other people how to do it?
I'm a big believer in walk the walk, talk the talk. And so I knew I had to get my life a bit under control before I could go out and teach it to others. Because you need to be transparent when you're in business, is my belief. And so I definitely needed to take a step back and start to figure out how I could be efficient. I could put more in a day than anybody else, but that's only one part of being a time strategy visionary. So I needed to start really doing what I said I was doing, creating balance in my life, really figuring out where do I want to be. Then I started to bring that into clients. I had the first part down. The time management part, had it down. It was the second and third parts of that I needed to work on for myself first and then bring it out to the world.
Right. So, what kind of clients, types of clients, let's say, come along that you work with, and can you share, not somebody specific, but can you share sort of the problems that they had previously, and maybe a tip that you helped them with that changed things around for them?
Absolutely. Most of my clients, actually I would say all of my clients, are very motivated adults. The majority of them happen to be women, but they're all motivated. They all want to get somewhere, and they all know there's an easier way to get there. They're just not sure what it is. So, for example, I was just on the phone with a client a couple hours earlier today, and we're getting towards the end of her program, and I said, what are you learning? And she said, when I first came here, I was frustrated with myself. I had so many projects that were important for the lifelong course of my business, but I couldn't sit down and concentrate on any one of them long enough to make any progress. And so I was frustrated, and I just let it all go. And so now what we've been able to do is develop a portion of her week that's consistent week to week that she spends only on her marketing. And so we were able to identify what was she replacing, because she always had a time dedicated to marketing. She just didn't use it for marketing. So she would, like she says, she'd swap out activities. And so we worked together and decided, figured out what was she swapping it for? What was the advantage of that? What was the disadvantage of that? And so we worked through all that, and then we set up some structures to make sure she stayed there. She was going to market from 10 to 12 on Wednesdays, and that was it. That's what's happening.
Right. So what would you say are some of the challenges that most of the clients that come to you have? Are there similarities between, you hear the same issues over and over?
Absolutely. One of the things that when I'm talking to potential clients, I will hear them say, I know that my life is really crazy busy now, but I'll slow down when I'm successful, when my business grows, And then I say, okay, great. So tell me exactly what that looks like. You've heard that before, haven't you?
Right. Actually, I was just thinking that would make a great Facebook post.
Yeah,
I will slow down when.
Yeah, because you keep moving, right? So you keep moving that bar while your business hits to what you have identified as success 5 years ago, but you're like, oh, no, that's not enough. And then so that's where a lot of my clients are. They know that they're possibly sacrificing their own self-care or time with their family in pursuit of their business goals.
Right.
But they keep saying, oh, it's okay. I know it's bad, but I'll slow down. I've got this plan in place. I'll slow down eventually. Right. But eventually never gets here. Right. So that's one, I would say, one of the challenges. And then the other is just the idea, because people live in such a hectic life that it's hard to eliminate distractions in general, and so the productivity really decreases.
Right.
So Facebook,
Facebook. Yeah, I was just going to say, would you say that a lot of the people that you work with have social media issues?
I would say they definitely have social media challenges, yes.
I just heard somebody yesterday say that, she feels that business has changed so dramatically because she now has to make time 3 times a day to check in on social media.
Mhm. And what I would say is, if that's your marketing philosophy, great. And if you can create or set aside that block of time 3 times a day and limit it to those 3 times for a limited amount of time, great. But what I find with many of my clients is it's every time their brain relaxes a tiny bit, it's picking up the phone, checking their social media, checking their email, checking their text messages. And so as soon as they start to work on a project, their brain starts to focus, and as soon as they hit like that first tiny, you know how you're writing a blog post and you hit that tiny bump in the road and you have to stop and think for a minute, that's when they're reaching for the phone or flipping on the internet instead of pushing through.
Right. And would you say that any of the people that you work with that sometimes their ideas or what they're working on you feel isn't going to work and their time should be better spent another way, or do you just help them through no matter what sort of what they want to work on?
I always tell my clients at the beginning, I am not a business coach. I'm not a marketing coach. I am a time strategy visionary. So whatever the plan is that you're laying out, other than a possible consumer of your product or service, that's the only business type advice I can bring to the table. So in answer to your question, we work on what they identify as their priorities, but we spend a lot of time talking about what those priorities are.
Right.
So usually when we start to create out a plan, they've done some serious thinking. I always tell them the hard part's theirs. I get to ask the questions. They have to think through the answers. And so they've done a lot of thinking about their business and their life and what's important, and then we start to implement those.
Right. It's funny you should say that because I remember one of the toughest questions that I had to ask myself, and I know this sounds like a silly question, but it was actually really difficult to answer. And the question was, what do I do?
Yes. That's insanely hard to answer.
And so it's like really interesting when you actually think about that, because it's not what you can do given a particular situation or this or that or a particular client. It's just as an overall statement. And for any business owner, it's a really good question to ask yourself.
Mhm. Yes. And it's funny, as you brought that up, I was at a female entrepreneur summit on Wednesday, and one of the panelists said, if you're struggling with what you do, listen to how people introduce you. And then decide if
that's why that's an important question to ask yourself, because you don't want people introducing you wrong.
Right, and that was her point exactly, is if what they're saying isn't what you think you do, you've got some serious work to do.
Right. So, all right, so let's talk about some of the systems that you have in place that people can, connect with you or download or use. Talk about some of the systems that you've put together that people can access.
Okay. What I do with my clients is I've taken this whole idea of starting with the end in mind and being efficient and effective, and I've worked it into the acronym AWE, A-W-E, for awareness, work, and evaluation. So on my blog posts, in some of my 30-day challenges, on my workbooks, that's what we focus on, is awareness, work, and evaluation. Build your awareness. Where do you want to be? What's important? Then create your structure around it, and then when you finish, let's take a couple minutes and go back and evaluate what worked and what didn't.
Wow, that's good.
Thank you.
So what's involved in all of that? Is it a long process? Is it a questionnaire? What exactly do they need to sort of fill out or put together?
When we're working in a one-on-one client relationship, there's a lot of questionnaires and emails and a lot of back and forth. I find that when you're in discussion, it's easier to get those aha moments than when you're filling out pre-form questions, because they don't necessarily go off on the tangent that your brain went off on. So we do a lot of that in person. When we're working in the 30-day challenge, then every day we work through one of the 3 stages of awe for 30 days. So we keep bouncing around awareness and then work and evaluation. We always do evaluation on the weekends when people tend to have a little more time.
Right. So as long as you mentioned it, why don't you talk about what the 30-day challenge is?
The 30-day challenge is a complimentary virtual challenge. It starts May 3rd, and those interested who are listening can join at AWEchallenge, AWEchallenge.com. And every day you get a short video, 2 or 3 minutes, and some action steps to help you apply laser focus every day for 30 days on a goal. So it could be a goal of completion. Some people have changed the copy on their website. They worked on it every day for 30 days. It could be a goal of habit. I had a participant who wanted to spend more time in meditation. And so every day for 30 days, she devoted time to meditate. So it's all everyone brings something different to the table.
Huh. Wow, it's really interesting. So, and then how do you go about, marketing, let's say, this program and put it out there to get people to join up?
Just like we're doing right now. This is my favorite way to market it because I love to talk with people about what I'm jazzed about. And I love this challenge. This will be the 3rd time I'm running it, and I'm inspired by the progress the participants make every time. I also will do guest blog posts for people, and they'll help me promote it. I have some JV partners who will send it out, and then all my networking groups, I start usually about 2 months in advance talking it up, and then all the previous participants who stayed with me for the 30 days, they will go out and they'll invite friends to join.
And the videos that you send out, do you also collect them so that they're available on your site or on your YouTube channel? And are any of the previous challenges available?
Yes. So they are all available right now on my YouTube channel. I'm currently deciding whether or not it's going to stay that way. But for right now, yes. The last 2 challenges plus this one starting in May, they will be available there.
You could always make a series of videos private, and then just as people join, let's say you could put their emails in so that only they have access to it.
Yes, and that's one of the options I'm considering. Many options are flying through my head. And so for this one, until I think it through all the way, we're keeping them open and available forever.
Right, and also since you have that education background, have you ever thought about putting this as like a course on, like Skillshare or Udemy or something like that, where people could access it that way?
That is definitely one of the, funny that you should mention that. That's actually something that just came into my awareness recently, and it's on the list of things to start to investigate and decide which way I want to go with that.
I'll tell you that the Udemy is very funny because I have a few classes up there, but I had this one. I decided to take a whole series of WordPress classes that I had, sort of videos that I had done, and make it into a class. Mm-hmm. That was free. It's on my on my Udemy account, and it's a free WordPress class. And as soon as I put that up there, people started joining. And then when I finally got Udemy to sort of help promote it, even though it was a free class, they helped by putting it on, listing it and everything. Mm-hmm. And now it's like really funny. I've only uploaded it like, I guess it's been up there maybe 4 or 5 months. Maybe 4 or 5 months. And it's approaching 1,200 students.
Wow. Wow.
But
See, now
okay,
this
but it is free.
The
I
top.
mean, it is free after all. So
right. But
and
the content's done. So absolutely, it's another way to market all of that. The videos are done. It's just a matter of pulling them together.
Right.
So
but
you've inspired
free
me.
is definitely different than if you sell one.
Right.
Because I if I go and I put a new WordPress class up there and I make it like intermediate and then I charge for it, it doesn't mean it's going to get anywhere near that many students.
Right. Right. And the Oz Challenge right now is free. So it's just another place to gain exposure. So you've inspired me to move this up towards the top of my list of things to explore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely think, especially this topic, because I really think that this topic is so hot right now because the combination of, more people becoming entrepreneurs and leaving those full-time jobs, going into, starting businesses is skyrocketing. And at the same time, we have social media and so many different places that's sort of, starting to take over how we interact with people. And so with all of this going on, the solopreneur or the entrepreneur, needs time management more than anything.
Right.
I mean, I know that I have to structure my day practically down to the moment. It's like because I had that same problem. I have that, I'm doing too many things, and when can I do this, and when can I do that? And so, one, sort of, like webinar series that I was doing has now just left the building because I just decided this is taking too much of my time. It's not getting the response that I want. It's obviously not earning me any money because it's free anyway. So this just has to be shelved.
Right. Right.
And maybe some other time.
Right. And that's one of the things that I encourage my clients all the time is to schedule time to evaluate. Evaluate at the end of the week the little stuff, but every 3 months, 6 months, evaluate big. Look at your priority list. What's sucking your time and is it worth it? I always tell them 80-20. 20% of your effort needs to go into 80% of your results, not the other way around. So if you're not living the Pareto rule, figure it out sooner rather than later. Right, exactly.
So here's a question I have. So why I love this acronym of AWE. So I was just wondering if there was any special meaning why you named it that.
I wish I had a really awesome story for you. However, the reality is I had A for awareness, and I had E for evaluation, and I just kept looking for letters to make a word. And then to work fit.
Right, exactly. All right, let's see. What would you say is the best place for someone to start, let's say, when they're deciding that they know that they have a problem with, let's say, time management, and now they want to work with someone like you? What's sort of the I mean, obviously the first step could be that they call you, but before they do that, maybe what would be the sign that they should recognize
I think
that it's time for someone like you? I guess.
Good question.
I guess that's really my question.
Well, good question, because your first part of that question, I was going to say, well, they call me. But how do they know? One of the things that, one of the signs that I tell people is if they're listening to this right now and anything that we've been talking about is resonating with them, it's worth a conversation. It's worth a conversation with someone about how they're feeling. So other things I do is very, feeling-based. Like if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling like a little bit tense or nervous or sick to your stomach because you're overwhelmed by everything you have on your plate. Or if you love your business but you're discouraged by the amount of time that you're spending in your business. Like we always say, many people started their own businesses because they love being a baker, but they don't necessarily love owning a bakery. And because those are two completely different things. And so if you're finding that your love for the skill is being overshadowed by all the business stuff, then it's worth a conversation with someone who specializes in coaching or time management, just to help you start to get a feel for you. Because if you wake up in the morning and you're frustrated or discouraged or, I just think of my client this morning and she's like, I love what I do, but every day I was frustrated and thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't get the important things in my day done. So if you're looking back on your life a year, 5 years, 10 years back, and you're in the same place that you were then, but it's not the place you want to be, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
That
totally makes sense. I mean, there are people who, have a dream about, let's say, where they want to go in their business or in their life. And I think what you're saying is so important because, one of the things that we don't want to do is, just run in place.
Right. Right. It's that idea of waking up 5 years later being in the same place.
Right.
Unless that's the place you want to be in. And there's nothing wrong if you're at the place you want to be. But for the rest of the world who's not, that's frustrating.
Right.
And usually that has to do with either a lack of a clear focus forward or allowing the everyday to take precedent over the big picture.
Right. One other thing that I thought we could just briefly touch on is do people come to you that, are currently, let's say, split? And what I mean by that is they still have, let's say, a job that they're either working in full-time or part-time, but they're also on the side starting their business. And so they are struggling with, let's say, time management because of both of those things. And so, what maybe one little tip that might help people who are in that situation.
Absolutely. Two of my favorite clients are husband and wife who currently own their own business and who both want to do something different than the business they own. And so we work on what's their transition plan out of the business that they own to get into what they both really, really want to do. And so my advice, or what we work on, the three of us specifically, is we talk about what did you do today to better your future self? Because you're juggling a lot of things, and it's easy to get tied down in their business. They sell a product. So it's very, everything's very urgent for them. Customer walks in the door, they need to hit that need. And then I always say, before you go to bed at night, what did you do to future your better self?
Right. Awesome. All right. I think that's the perfect place for us to end. And so to find out more information, you can visit www.awechallenge.com, and that's AW challenge. So www.awechallenge.com. And we were talking to Lisa Crilley Mallis. Thank you so much for joining the call today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now let's say a prayer that we both don't have snow.
I know. That'd be awesome.
All right. I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.